Hey everybody, it's your girl, Dr. Letitia, and we are back with another episode of my web show, Coffee and Conversations. I know we've been going for a couple weeks, you guys. I have absolutely missed you, but it is so important, especially during this month of May, for us to ensure that we are taking care of ourselves, mind, body, spirit, and soul. So, you guys know I like to take my reprieves to regroup, but we are back, and I am so excited for the guest that we have today. She is somebody that I have, you guys know how I do. I stalked social media and we ended up connecting, finding out that we had quite a bit in common in terms of what we do professionally, knowing the same folks and all of that stuff. So I just thought it would be amazing to bring her on. So let me tell you all about her. Nandi Nelson is an experienced board certified behavioral analyst and licensed clinical social worker. Nandi has worked with individuals with varying disabilities across various age ranges, settings, and populations in the United States and abroad. She is a graduate of the Pennsylvania State University with a Bachelor's of Science in Human Development and Family Studies and a minor in psychology. She's also a graduate of the University of Michigan with a master's degree in social work. Nandi is also a PhD student studying applied behavior analysis. Nandi has found new passion of mindfulness and organizational behavioral management. She also enjoys identifying new ways to best support both children and their families. Please join me in welcoming her to Coffee and Conversations. Hey, hey.
Hey, how are
I'm
you?
great. So good to see you. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in. Tell me what brought you to the field of social work and behavior analysis.
So it's really funny because I kind of stumbled into the field of both social work and behavior analysis by chance.
Okay.
So as it relates to social work, I had this idea in my mind that social work only meant like being a welfare social worker. So I was like, I do not want to be a social
I
worker.
want to do that.
I was like, no, I don't, because a few of my professors in undergrad were encouraging me that I should pursue social work. And I was like, nope, I am not. I don't want to be a welfare social worker, yada, yada, yada. They were like, take your time, look into it, and you'll see if you like it or not. So actually, I, did some research in social work and saw that social workers performed a variety of duties and had a variety of jobs and, different career options. So I was intrigued by the field. Once I went on a few school visits, I truly fell in love with the field. And just so grateful to have had the opportunity for my professors to first introduce me to the field of social work and then also to go down that route, which led to, the work that I do today. As it relates to behavior analysis, kind of similar. During my master's of social work program, during my internship, I was placed at a community mental health agency in
Okay.
Detroit. So with being placed there, I was placed in the autism department. And that's also how I came across, learning more about individuals that have autism. And there were a few of my colleagues that were studying behavior analysis. So I saw that that particular science was helpful in supporting and teaching the children with autism. So at that time, I said, well, if they're doing it, maybe I should be doing it too. And
That's
that's
right.
kind of how I stumbled across behavior analysis as well. And it's very different in terms of like the school of thoughts for both professions and both sciences as it relates to social work and apply behavior analysis. However, they both have been such a blessing to me because I'm able to not only connect with my families on a more, interpersonal level and really applying all those theories that I've learned from social work to the work that I do with the families, but also being able to be very analytical as it relates to the child and the behaviors or the skills that they may be achieving or the behaviors that they might engage in.
Tell us, Nandi, what made you say, you know what? I want to take what I've learned, I want to take my experience and now have my own practice. Tell us about what helped you make that decision and what those like parameters were for you.
Mhm. So I always wanted to have my own practice, since I was little. I thought that I would be a psychologist, had
Okay.
the idea in my mind, I probably from, like, movies and stuff like that, like, I'm gonna sit on my couch, have my notepad, and, like, my client's gonna sit there, and I'm just gonna write notes. So I always had in my mind that, like, I either wanted my own business, and I thought that I would be a psychologist,
Okay.
probably from the movies. That's why I was like, "No social work, I wanna be a psychologist." And I'm like, "Oh, social work is great." So that was kind of like the start of it. I did not know that I would be working with children. I didn't know
Okay.
that I would specifically be working with children with autism and their families. That
Okay.
kind of morphed along, through the different jobs that I've had. There were certain things that I really enjoyed about specific companies that I had worked for, and
Okay.
certain things that I didn't really enjoy. So I thought, I still would love to have my own practice. And, that was again still a goal of mine. So I thought, hey, why not take, those things that I really liked about certain companies and those things that I may have thought were missing from certain companies and kind of create it into my own.
Okay.
So I finally just decided one day to go for it. And I think that in my mind, I had always thought, like, yes, I definitely want to have my own practice, but I didn't think that it would be what it is. So
Okay.
I'm still kind of surprised by what it is now. But yeah, so it kind of was always a goal of mine, just kind of letting the man above lead me. And this is where I
Yes.
am now.
Yes, absolutely. Doing amazing work. And,
Thank you.
we just came from the month of April, which is Autism
Yes,
Awareness Month.
yes,
We are now in the month of May. May is flying by, but we're in the month of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. Tell us something, especially for our listeners that may be dealing with their own child with an autism diagnosis or a child in their village. What are some of the resources available for families? Because I feel like there's so many things out there, but people don't necessarily know, what's out there, what type of interventions exist, and how these things can lead to better outcomes. Tell us what's
yes.
out there for these children and
Yes.
families.
Yes, so absolutely. There's a ton of resources that are out there for families in general,
Okay.
as well as families who may have a child with autism or those who may care for, a child within their village or even an adult. So as it relates to those resources, a lot of resources as it relates to those in their particular state that they could have access to, meaning the child, usually that child would have to have a diagnosis. So I
Okay.
know that, it's Mental Health Awareness Month as a whole. But I know that there are some, families that even that I interface with that haven't yet come to terms with a diagnosis, or
Okay.
there might be signs that they see, but they're not yet ready, to take the next step to find out and confirm if their child actually has autism or not. Um,
Okay.
but as it relates to accessing specific therapy related services and those therapy related services being covered by insurance,
Okay.
traditionally those families would need to have an autism diagnosis for their child or their loved one.
Okay.
Um, However, in general, there are a ton of informational resources out there. There's also a lot of grants and for support financially for families. So I know that United Healthcare has a grant that supports with families to help them pay co-payments and things
Oh,
like
wow.
that. Because when we're thinking about autism as a diagnosis as a whole, that's kind of like a whole child approach.
Mhm.
Oftentimes there are a lot of different service providers that are involved in that child's life. So, for example, for me and the therapy that we do at my practice, it's applied behavior analysis therapy. So,
Okay.
traditionally, that is to support with helping the child learn, a variety of skills as it relates to some early academic skills for the younger children, learning
Okay.
how to sit in a chair because sometimes the children do not know how to sit down, learning how to do some of the simple tasks that we might take for granted, such as like brushing our teeth or
Yes.
putting on our shoe or zipping a coat, things like that. Also, we help them to learn, how to best communicate their wants and needs, because oftentimes children with autism can be considered non-vocally verbal, so meaning they
Okay.
don't speak. So it might be that they engage in behaviors in order to get their needs met. So if they're hungry or they're tired, they might have a tantrum, or if they're hungry, they may take their parent's hand and pull them to the kitchen or pull them to different
Mhm.
areas, which when I'm working with families, like, that's great and that works for your home. But if your child is out in the community or at school and they're just pulling on someone and they don't know what they're wanting,
Not
then
gonna work.
right, that's not going to work. So we have to figure out a better way. And then as it relates to other service providers, that can include occupational therapy, maybe physical therapy, speech therapy, um, even sometimes counseling. So for some
Okay.
of the older children that I have worked with, or the children that are maybe considered like quote unquote higher functioning, as it relates to autism spectrum disorder, they may also be having some, barriers in other areas and need some support, as it relates to counsel, like with counseling for navigating relationships, or, dealing with other barriers that they might have. So it's really a whole person approach, obviously
Okay.
school too, if they're school age children, but it's in, psychiatry, if they have medication
Okay.
management, obviously the pediatrician or the medical doctor. So it's really a whole person approach. But there are, like I had mentioned, a ton of resources as it relates to just getting started to understand more about autism. Autism Speaks is a great, website to explore, and a great organization,
Okay.
because it has so many resources as it relates to, families that are just diagnosed, how to, support siblings of your, the child that has autism, because oftentimes
That's
siblings are left in
awesome.
the shadow.
Yes.
So, that's pretty big, because oftentimes, sometimes these siblings are the ones who will have to care for their brothers or their sisters. So we want to make sure that we're nurturing for them a good relationship, so that the siblings don't resent their brother or sister.
Yes.
Um,
Such a good point.
yeah, so there's tons of resources, even local, like within the state. Typically, there's state-based organizations as well. So, like for example, New Jersey, there's Autism New Jersey, which does a lot of advocacy around policies and information and stuff like that, to help to ensure that the families and the children are getting, and the adults are getting, what they need.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a ton of different resources that are out there. But as I had mentioned, a lot of times, many of those resources come after the diagnosis has been provided, or
Okay.
has been given.
Okay.
Mhm.
Tell me about your organization, where you all are located, how people can get in touch with you, because just in the few minutes you were just speaking, Nandi, you gave like a wealth of resources, and it's so important that people know how to access your company. Where
Mhm.
can they find you?
Thank you. Yeah, so my company is called Social Behavior Learning Solutions, and we are located in Livingston, New Jersey. So we have a center based location where we provide services to children with autism as well as their families. So, as it relates to the services, again, we do ABA therapy, which stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. And our program encompasses the direct therapy with the child, and then also we have a parent training component, parent coaching. So really what the purpose is of that particular service as well, that we do with our parents, is
Mhm.
to have that carryover and that continuity of care, because it's great that
Okay.
your child can do all these wonderful things with us, but then when they walk out the door, parents are
Mhm.
still having difficulty. So it's like,
Yes.
we have to, have those meetings, and we have to have those chats, so that we can be on one accord with, mom, dad, what is it that you feel comfortable with doing at home? What is it that feel well equipped to do, so that there isn't that big contrast between, the child of, oh, this is what I do only at, some parents call it school for their children, which is fine. But this is what I do at school, or this is what I do at therapy, and then this is what I do at home. And that's not the case. And we acknowledge that, we don't want our parents to feel like their child's therapist, because that's
Yes.
not your
Not
purpose, right?
appropriate. Mhm.
But we also have to recognize that sometimes it's very difficult for the children that we work with, as it relates to their condition, to understand and differentiate between, okay, I'm, responding or I'm behaving this way because this is what I need to do in order to have fun with my friends or make friends or, get things a lot quicker versus doing behaviors to get all those things.
Mhm.
So we do have that. We also provide social skills groups for our children because
Okay.
again, with autism, typically there is that social communication or social interaction deficit that comes along with that diagnosis. So we do
Okay.
provide groups for our children to learn how to interact socially with peers because many of them prefer to be around adults than they do to be around other children. So we really want to
Okay.
promote that. Um, and we also do parent support groups because again, we want to make sure that
Very
our
needed.
parents are yes,
Yes.
because they feel it's sad because when I ask parents, who is your source of support? Where do you gain support? Oftentimes it's providers, which is not to me, it's like that's not good. That's a
That
red.
is so sad.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, that's not good because, I mean, as a provider, this is the work that we do. And sometimes we transition to other roles and do different things. So if your main source of support was your child's therapist, that's not good. We want to make sure that
Mhm.
we're helping you to foster a community that can be long term, in addition that, has some type of insight into what it feels like or what it is like to be a parent of a child with autism, as well as can give you tips because you never know what someone has maybe tried or what
Yes.
organization or school, and they can steer you away or tell you yes, this is great. So we definitely we have our parent support groups where we just kind of let them take lead. If they want a
That's
vent
great.
session, cool, have a vent session. If you want to learn
Yes.
about resources, let's learn about resources. So that's been great. And then we also do some sibling support and
Okay.
sibling counseling because, as I mentioned, oftentimes a lot of the siblings take the role as
Caregiver.
of many parents.
Yes.
So we have to also talk to them through that, what that feels like, and also help the parents to recognize, like, yes, I understand this is tough. Yes, I understand, you want your child to be that support to you as well, because it's a lot, and it's helpful when you have an older child that can help you to care for your son or daughter. But we also have to recognize that we don't want them to now begin to resent, Johnny
Yes.
or Jane
Mhm. Mhm.
because they feel like, mom or dad is ignoring me and I have to do all this stuff for my sister and my brother. So we
Yeah.
also have to help them to understand that, you have to spend time with your other child, or, you have
Mhm.
to kind of take a little bit of the load off of them so they can also be a kid. So,
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Any last words? This was so informative. I learned so much. Anything you want to leave the audience with, Nandi?
yeah, so I would just say, as it relates to, I know it's Mental Health Awareness Month. We just ended
Yes.
Autism Awareness Month. So I would just say that if you are in the community, here I am advocating for my parents of children with autism, give parents grace, be
Yes.
patient, don't
Yes.
judge. A lot of the parents are have difficulties, and I always hear the grocery store is like a nightmare, malls are a nightmare for the
Nursery, the grocery stores and airplanes are.
right. So it's like the parents have anxiety as it begins
Yes,
with going into the places that they have to go into because they need
correct.
food, right? And then
Yes,
most of the time they don't have other support or babysitters, so they have to bring their child. And it saddens me to hear about the stories from those parents of like the stares that they get or the comments that they get when
yes,
people don't understand that one, their child has autism or their child might have other intellectual disabilities. And so I just want to say, give people grace. You never know what they're going through, whether it
that's
be
right.
a parent of a child with autism or just someone that you're walking past in the grocery store.
That's
So
right.
lead with grace. Don't judge. If you're curious or you want to show support or be of support to someone that you see struggling, ask. Don't just give suggestions or, just start
Yes.
helping because,
Unsolicited advice
right,
never
right.
works.
Like, if you just feel, led to support someone that you see struggling in the moment, just say, hey, do you need a hand? And maybe they'll say yes. And if they do, then help in any way that you can. And if they say no, then leave them alone. But
Yes.
yeah, I think I would lead with that. as my last words, just because I hear time and time again the difficulties that the parents have in those community settings, and how disheartened they are, you know, when they get those comments that people might say, as if it's easy to just stop it, or to just
Yeah.
fix it, or to just
Yes.
reprimand and things like that. And they're like, people just don't understand. That's just not how it is. If I
It
could,
doesn't
I
work that
would,
way.
right?
Yes,
So, and I
absolutely.
think a lot of people don't know, because we all want to be helpful, and we all want to, you know, we all lead with great intention, but sometimes we again don't recognize what a person might be going through.
Yes, absolutely. What I say to people all the time, Nandi, and it really just sums up what you mentioned. Just be kind,
Yeah,
right? Be
yeah,
kind. It costs absolutely nothing
right,
to be kind, right? So if we
right,
lead with that, we always land at the right place.
right.
I want to thank you for just coming on the show and just for sharing all of your knowledge with us, sharing all of the amazing work that you do. We honor the work that you do. We are so blessed to be connected to you as an agency. I'm so blessed to be connected to you personally, and continue making a difference in the lives of children and families. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank you for having me.